Imagine holding in your hand a coin that is not only a piece of silver, but also a piece of American history, a coin that represents a nation's resilience after the Second World War, a coin that captures the face of one of the most influential leaders of the United States, and a coin that collectors today treasure for its rarity and value. The 1948 half-dollar coin is not just money, it is a story frozen in metal, a story that begins in the aftermath of the Great Depression and the global conflict that followed, a story that ties together politics, economics, artistry, and legacy. When we look at the 1948 half-dollar, we are looking at the very first year of the Franklin half-dollar series, a design that ran from 1948 until 1963 and marked a departure from traditional coinage designs. The coin was introduced to honor Benjamin Franklin, one of the most brilliant founding fathers, a man whose inventions, writings, and statesmanship had left an enduring mark on the nation, and in 1948 his image was struck on a half-dollar coin for the first time, replacing the walking Liberty half-dollar, which itself was one of the most beloved designs in American numismatics. The decision to honor Franklin on the half-dollar was not random. It came from Mint director Nellie Taylor Ross, who admired Franklin deeply and wanted to see his legacy represented in circulating coinage. Franklin was known for his role in drafting the Declaration of Independence, his diplomacy in France during the American Revolution, his experiments with electricity, and his famous sayings in Poor Richard's Almanac. By placing Franklin on the coin, the United States Mint was paying tribute to his vision of liberty, innovation, and civic responsibility. The reverse of the coin carried the Liberty Bell, a symbol of American independence, but it also had a small eagle to satisfy a legal requirement that all half-dollars must bear an eagle. This combination of the Liberty Bell and eagle made the coin unique both artistically and historically. The year 1948 marked the first mintage of this design, and as such it became a landmark year in United States coinage history. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 3 million of these coins, while the Denver Mint struck fewer, giving collectors today two different mint marks to seek out for their collections. The striking of these coins was done in 90% silver, which means each coin contained real intrinsic value beyond its face value. And in the late 1940s, silver coins were still a part of everyday commerce, being exchanged in shops, banks, and daily trade. As we move deeper into the history of this coin, we can see how it reflects not only the art of coin design, but also the economic realities of the time. America in 1948 was shifting into a new era. The war had ended just a few years earlier, soldiers had returned home, industries were booming, and the nation was entering a period of prosperity. Yet there was also the beginning of the Cold War and uncertainty on the global stage. This coin circulated during a time when Americans were buying homes, starting families, and building what we now call the modern American dream. The half-dollar itself was a significant denomination, often used in banks and larger transactions, and it was a coin that symbolized substance and value. Numismatists today study the details of the 1948 half-dollar closely. The Portrait of Franklin by John R. Sinek, the chief engraver of the United States Mint, carried his initials juniors at the base of the bust. Interestingly, Sinek had already designed Franklin's portrait for a medal years earlier, and that design was adapted for the coin. Some at the time even mistook the initials juniors for a hidden tribute to Joseph Stalin, which caused controversy in the early years of the coin's release. But the truth was far less dramatic and simply connected to the engraver's name. The coin's reverse, with the Liberty Bell, contained every line and crack carefully engraved, and collectors today often examine how well those details were struck when evaluating condition and grade. Higher grade examples with sharp strikes are worth much more than worn circulated pieces. Because this was the first year of issue, the 1948 half-dollar has always had collector appeal, and as silver coinage was later removed from circulation after 1964, these earlier issues became even more treasured. Today, collectors look for both Philadelphia and Denver Mint examples and examine details such as luster, toning, strike sharpness, and any possible minting errors. Over the decades, the Franklin half-dollar series has become one of the most studied and beloved coin series in American numismatics. The 1948 coin represents the beginning of that journey. is not just a coin, it is a gateway into a world of collecting history and heritage, and it continues to inspire collectors both young and old. The 1948 half dollar is more than just silver. It is a monument in miniature to Benjamin Franklin and to the America of the late 1940s. It tells us about who we were as a nation, where we were headed, and what values we chose to honor every time it changed hands in shops, banks, and households. This coin spoke of independence, innovation, and the lasting memory of a founding father, and as we trace its history, we uncover layer after layer of meaning, from its design origins to its place in post-war America, from the artistry of Sinoc to the controversies of the initials, from the symbolism of the Liberty Bell to the economic role of silver coins in daily life. This is a story rich enough to fill hours of study and appreciation, and that is why the 1948 half dollar continues to shine in the world of coins, a small piece of silver with a giant story to imagine finding in your pocket, a coin that is more than just 50 cents, a coin that carries the face of one of the most brilliant minds in American history, a coin that represents the very first chapter of a legendary coin series, and a coin that still echoes the spirit of freedom, innovation, and resilience of the United States. This is the 1948 half dollar, the first ever Franklin half dollar, and it is no ordinary piece of silver. It is a story carved in metal, a story that begins with the vision of a mint director who admired Benjamin Franklin so deeply that she wanted his legacy struck into the hands of millions of Americans. It is a story of artistry, from the hands of chief engraver John R. Sinoc, whose design would both inspire admiration and spark controversy when his initials were mistaken for a hidden tribute to a foreign leader. It is a story of the Liberty Bell, placed boldly on the reverse, a national symbol of independence, but forced to share space with an eagle because of old laws that demanded its presence. It is a story of an America in 1948, rebuilding from war, stepping into prosperity, and yet entering a Cold War where every symbol of freedom mattered. This coin touched hands in shops and banks. It lived in pockets and purses. It was exchanged in a time when silver still gave weight and value to money, and today it stands as the beginning of a beloved coin series that would last until 1963, when it gave way to another icon, the Kennedy half dollar. The 1948 half dollar is the key that unlocks the door to post-war America, to numismatic artistry, to national pride, and to the enduring memory of Benjamin Franklin. And when you dive into its history, you will not only uncover the origins of its design, the drama of its controversy, and the beauty of its craftsmanship, but you will also hold a mirror to the America of the late 1940s, an America proud, resilient, and forward-looking. This coin is not just a piece of silver, it is a piece of the American story. In the mid-1970s, America stood at a turning point in its history, and this turning point was not only felt in politics, culture, and society, but also etched forever into the very coins that passed through the hands of millions of Americans. And among these coins, the 1976 half dollar, known as the bicentennial Kennedy half dollar, holds a place unlike any other, because the single piece of metal captures the celebration of 200 years of American independence, the memory of a fallen president, and the story of a nation that was both looking back at its birth and forward to its future. To understand the power of this coin, we must travel back to 1963, when the assassination of President John F. Kennedy shocked the world. Within months, his portrait replaced Benjamin Franklin on the half dollar, symbolizing both national mourning and collective memory. But fast forward to the early 1970s, when the United States was preparing to mark the bicentennial of the Declaration of Independence, the Treasury and Congress knew that something special had to be done with American coinage, so the Mint prepared a commemorative redesign for the quarter, the half dollar, and the Eisenhower dollar coins, and in doing so they created some of the most recognized coins in modern US history. The 1976 Kennedy half dollar became a centerpiece of the celebration, bearing a reverse design unlike any other ever struck before. The reverse, designed by Seth G. Huntington, depicted Independence Hall in Philadelphia, the birthplace of American liberty. It was a design meant to capture the very heart of the bicentennial, the place where the founding fathers had declared freedom 2 centuries earlier, and on the obverse the familiar and iconic bust of John F. Kennedy by Gilroy Roberts remained a constant, reminding the nation of leadership, sacrifice, and enduring vision. The combination of Kennedy's image on the front and Independence Hall on the back created a coin that bridged 2 defining moments: the Revolution of 1776 and the tragedy of 1963. The coin was issued with the dual date 1776 to 1976 instead of the usual single date, and this immediately made it stand out for collectors and everyday Americans alike. It symbolized the sweep of history, 200 years of struggle, triumph, innovation, and resilience, and unlike many commemorative coins that were struck in small quantities, the bicentennial $half were produced in the hundreds of millions by the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints, and struck in both circulation strike, copper, nickel clad, and special collector issues in 40% silver, making them accessible every pocket, and yet also desirable for numismatists. When you hold a 1976 $half, you are holding not only money, but also a monument to history, a coin that traveled in circulation through the hands of everyday citizens during the great celebrations of America's bicentennial. Fireworks, parades, and patriotic displays swept across every city and town, and the very coins used to buy food tickets and souvenirs bore this special design. But beyond its circulation use, the coin also reflects the fascinating economics of the mint and the collector market. In the 1970s, the US Mint had learned from the lessons of the 1960s, when silver was withdrawn from coinage and coin collecting boomed. So when the bicentennial approached, the mint prepared large quantities of special collector sets, proof and uncirculated issues to satisfy both patriotic Americans and numismatists. And today, these coins, whether found in circulated condition jingling in old drawers or in pristine condition sealed in government packaging, remain an enduring symbol of that era. But to appreciate the full history of the 1976 Kennedy $half, we must go deeper into the design, the production, the cultural meaning, and the collector value. We must understand the symbolism of Independence Hall, why Huntington's design was chosen, and how it competed with other proposed sketches. We must examine the production process in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, the challenges of striking dual-dated coins, the use of special bicentennial dies, and the decision to mint both clad and silver issues. We must look at the distribution and marketing by the mint, how proof and mint sets were sold in massive numbers as keepsakes for the bicentennial celebration. We must also trace how the public reacted to the coin, how many Americans saved them as souvenirs rather than spending them, how dealers and collectors predicted future values, and how over time the market for bicentennial $half evolved, with some issues like the 40% silver proofs gaining stronger premiums while the clad versions remained common in circulation. And then there is the story of Kennedy's legacy itself, for this coin was more than a commemoration of the revolution, it was also a continuation of the memorial to America's 35th president, whose youthful energy and tragic death left an indelible mark on the nation. The bicentennial coinage thus became not only a patriotic tribute, but also a cultural artifact representing hope, loss, remembrance, and pride. And as we unfold this history, we must also analyze its place among other bicentennial coinage: the quarter with Jack L.R.'s colonial drummer, and the Eisenhower dollar with Dennis Williams' Liberty Bell and Moon design. Together they formed a triad of commemorative issues, each telling part of the bicentennial story. And yet, the $half perhaps carried the most layered symbolism, because it was already tied to Kennedy's image, and now tied to Independence Hall, giving it a dual weight of memory and meaning. Collectors today often overlook the significance of the 1976 $half because of its high mintage, but true students of numismatics understand that rarity is not the only measure of importance. Significance, history, symbolism, and cultural resonance matter as much, and in those areas the bicentennial Kennedy $half remains unmatched. Over the course of this deep exploration, we will walk through the origins, the artistic competition, the symbolism of the designs, the role of the mint, the mintage figures, the varieties, including clad in silver, the proof sets, and the collector reception. We will examine how values have shifted over time, why certain issues carry premiums, and why this coin remains an essential part of any serious US coin collection. By the end of this journey, you will see that the 1976 half dollar is not just a coin but a time capsule, a patriotic emblem, and a memorial rolled into one small disc of metal. And that is why when we hold it, we are holding not just currency, but a piece of America's story, and to understand it fully is to understand the very soul of the bicentennial era.